Okay, just what we need, another video, right? I want to go over RMAs today just because I want to make sure we all understand how those work, how to create them, and how to enter them into AP. I know that's not necessarily important for people who process the tickets, but it is really important to understand how it works on the accounting side, and it makes it a lot easier to get through them. So I'm going to use this PO here as an example. I've actually had to recreate it, so it's actually 57630A, but we've got this purchase order for $24.98. David went to Lock Supply to get some material. So that's on the invoice. It's been received, and we remember from before what happens when we receive the PO in Sawin. So we've got this debit in the dropship account. It's increasing our dropship account. And then we've got the credit in accrued purchases. That is increasing our accrued purchases. So this account here just holds all of those purchases for purchase orders that we've got accumulated. So that is when the PO is full received in Sawin. Now, assuming that we didn't have any returns on the parts, and David went there, got the parts, put them on in the job, and then just build it out like normal, then we know that when we post the ticket, the material sales is going to be $51.96. That's how much he charged the customer. Our cost was $24.98. And then when we post the ticket, it also is going to take that out of the dropship account. We've got the $24.98 from the beginning, and then we post the ticket, and we've got $24.98 on this side. That's decreasing that account. So then those cancel out to zero. Okay, that is just a normal purchase order without any returns, so we know how to do that. But now I want to talk about the RMA process. So we're going to assume that David went, or maybe the customer canceled or something and he had to go back and return the parts. So let's create an RMA for this PO. So we go to Purchase Inventory, Tasks, Return a Material, and RMA Entry. And yes, we are returning material for a PO. And that PO number is 57630A. And then we press Tab here. This would be the RMA date. Usually you'll just leave that the same. And then you'll click Parts from Receiving Report down here. We want to highlight this line from the receiving report and select. Okay, so now if we leave this as it is, we are telling the system that David went back to Lock and returned 100% of this invoice. And that's what this extended amount here is. That's how much the RMA is. So if he only returned, let's say, half of the parts, we would put 0.5 here. And that changes this amount to $12.49. So we would be saying we got a credit from Lock for $12.49 because he returned half the parts. Or let's say he returned $20 of the parts. You just take the $20 he returned, divide that by the total of the original invoice, and you get 0.8006. And then we see that translates to $20 returned. For this example, we're just going to leave it as 1. We're going to say he returned the entire amount, all of the parts that he bought originally. So we save that. It's going to say, it's going to create an RMA. That's what we want. And then we say OK. Now when we do that, 658384. On the invoicing side, we already know that it's going to show this RMA up here on top. We go into the billing details. If we see that there's an RMA on this PO, see this line is for the PO, we're going to delete that line. And then everything will go away. So it'll be as if we never went and got those parts. If we had only returned half of the parts, you would see the 0.5 quantity on that purchase order line, and that RMA alert would stay up here. So we know that if we see the RMA alert up here and we've got a purchase order line item that has a 1 in it, we know that can't be correct because we've returned some parts. So we need to delete the PO, and then it'll pop back up and let us pull it in. It'll have the 0.5 in the quantity like we want. So in this example, we just return the entire amount. I'll show you how that works on the T accounts here. So we do a full RMA for the whole amount. That is going to remove that $24.98 that we originally had, and it is going to put that into returns. So now our dropship account is good. We've got the debit here, the credit here, that's all canceled out. But now we have to deal with the returns and the accrued purchases. So the first thing we do is put in the original vendor invoice into Sawin. So to do that, we're going to go to AP, Task, Enter Bills. Our vendor was Lock, and our invoice number was 57630. In this example, you would actually have a real invoice. That would be this invoice number from Lock, but we're going to use this. Now the original PO, 57630A, we have to put this into Sawin first. I'm going to delete the discount because that won't matter. Distribute and save. So now when we do that, we've got the original invoice in. It's going to debit accrued purchases for $24.98 and credit AP trade. So now our accrued purchases account is good because we've got the credit here, the debit here, so it cancels out to zero. Now the problem that we have is we haven't dealt with this returns account. So we also have to enter the credit memo from the vendor, or the RMA, in the system. So we go here. We would have the actual credit invoice number from Lock, but I'm just going to use CM here. And if I go to this magnifying glass for the RMAs, there are a lot of RMAs in here that were never entered, which I'm sure we corrected at some point, but this is why it's important to put this in here. If I go to the very bottom, I see the RMA that we created. I'm going to click that and pull it in. And now we've got the inventory returns account that will automatically pop up, and we're going to save that. So now we've got everything canceled out like we need. So the when we enter that RMA, it's going to credit the returns account, and that cancels out this debit in the returns account from before. So now all of our accounts are zero, and that's what we want. It's the exact way to handle an RMA on the invoice side and on the AP side. The last thing for the AP people, we do have to clear out this the original invoice and the credit memo. If we go to Lock's account here, then we're going to see those invoices here. And yes, it does cancel out to zero, and it won't affect, you know, the money that we pay to Lock or anything like that, but we do want to clear these out so we don't have just a big accumulation of all these RMAs that sit in here. So I'm going to go to AP, Tasks, Pay Bills, Check Run. I'm going to create a new check run. I'm going to add the specific vendor of Lock. Then if I scroll down to the bottom, I should see my two invoices that I'll check off. We've got the $24.98 and the negative $24.98, so I'll save that. And we see the number of checks to be printed is 1 and the total amount is 0. So then we just do a manual check. We can leave this as the default, leave the check date. We put CLRCM, vendor, number 327. And that was on 3/16/19. I put a 2 because I've already done this once, and I can't use the just 3/16/19. You can really put anything in the check number, it doesn't matter, but I would just always start with CLRCM so that we know that you're clearing a credit memo, and then put the vendor number. I would advise putting the date, maybe the PO number, something like that. So then we update. It doesn't really affect anything on the GL when we do that, but that clears that out from AP. So that is the full RMA process for both the service dispatch side and the accounts payable side. Hopefully all of these accounts make sense. You don't have to completely understand every single aspect of the T accounts here and all of that, but it does really help explain how it works on the financial statements and how everything leads to the financials, and why it's really important that we do everything correctly. Otherwise, we're going to end up with maybe the returns account is going to have a huge debit balance that's accumulating in here, and then we never have the credits from the RMAs being put into AP. So things get kind of messed up, and we have to go in and correct those every period. But so if we do it right the first time, then it makes the period closing process a lot easier. So that is RMAs, and that's all for now.